Hi, my name is Cameron Miller, and this is Trinity Place, Geneva, New York. Sometimes something happens and suddenly everything is different. Rubicon is a good word for it, the point of no return. I recommend you look up where that word Rubicon comes from, and you'll see why it is exactly the right word for the moment. Crossing the Rubicon means standing in the present, unable to go backward, and stone cold certain that whatever was in front of us before has changed permanently. March 15th, 2020 was a Rubicon. That was the Sunday of the shutdown, the last time that we would worship in this place all in one together until, well, we don't even know until when, do we? August 6th, 1945, Hiroshima was a Rubicon. October 4th, 1957, Sputnik was a Rubicon. November 2nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy's assassination. March 6th, 1965, Bloody Sunday. 1968 was a whole year of Rubicons. Or the whole year was a Rubicon. January 30th, 1968, the Tet Offensive. April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King is assassinated. June 6th, 1968, Robert Kennedy is assassinated. August 26th, 1968, a police riot at the Democratic National Convention. October 16th, 1968, John Carlos and Tommy Smith raised their fist with a black glove while the national anthem announced their Olympic gold and silver. The date of such moments, some dates of such moments need no name. September 11th, 2001. November 4th, 2008. Now, January 6th, 2021. Here we are. Just the second Sunday of Epiphany. But the day of Epiphany itself lies back on the other side of the chasm. None of us are ever going back there. Like all such moments, we do not know exactly what has changed, but we do know, because the hair on the back of our neck tells us so, that the days ahead will not be what we might have expected just on January 6th. Now, like 99 to 100% of those reading or hearing this sermon, I have no hesitation condemning the insurrection at the Capitol building. That is so easy. The fact that almost all of us would agree should also serve as a warning about our bubble. Expanding the bubble is painful and difficult. I've spent some time softening my shell this week. Because I have demonstrated on the streets before and felt the rage myself, I spent some time putting myself in that crowd at the Capitol. It's not very difficult at all for me to imagine being in a crowd like that in rebellion against fascists, and to be honest, even less than fascists. I like to think that if I found myself standing next to a guy with a spear and a fur hat and horns, or worse, carrying zip ties, I would immediately reevaluate what was about to happen. But nonetheless, I felt the rage. I've met the rage. I know the rage. I'm guessing you do too. Politically, there are all kinds of things happening around us. Crossing the Rubicon sets events in motion, and few, if any, can predict what the outcome will be. We each have our own particular partisan ideological hopes and fears, and none of them are Christian. Okay? None of them are Christian. There is no Christian political ideology. There is no Christian national agenda. There is no Christian manifesto that is a one-size-fits-all. Part of the reason that we are where we are is that Donald Trump has recruited and been recruited by a malignant form of Christian evangelicalism that is fascist in its politics and its behavior. It has a religious manifesto that it wants to cram all of us into. For that reason alone, personally, I hope Trump will somehow still be removed from office over the next 3 days. But I will not pretend or propose that there is only one way to understand where we are and where we need to go from a Christian point of view. I will not engage in that kind of religion. Instead, in this moment, I want to spend some time understanding my own rage and hatreds, so that in response to violence and my own inclination towards violence, I can act more like Jesus and Martin Luther King than the leftist warrior I feel inside. And that's precisely what we need to do once we have crossed the Rubicon and before we understand where it's taken us. In such moments, our navigational equipment becomes untethered from the usual directional indicators. The poles may even have reversed, and right and wrong may have moved like checkers on the squares. In such moments, we cannot follow our feelings alone. We must lean on the core values we cherish and claim. If gospel wisdom is a core value, then now is the time to lean on it instead of partisan instincts and political ideology or the seductive pleasure of righteous indignation. And where that leads me is the Baptismal Covenant. Now, whether or not you have been baptized, and whether or not you happen to be a Christian, and whether or not you happen to be an Episcopalian, this is a down and dirty description that I'm making of what it means to practice gospel wisdom based on our understanding of the Baptismal Covenant. It is descriptive, not prescriptive, which is utterly unlike the fascist forms of Christianity. This description is eminently doable. It's practical. It's doable in a variety of forms. One size does not fit all, but offers rather the outline of actions to guide us in uncertain times. So here are the 5 elements of this baptismal practice, translated from the usual theological jargon into the street language where we live. 1. Continue to be located in the beloved community, practicing the shared rituals and sharing love. We are not alone. We are not self-sufficient, and we need not, and we dare not be isolated. 2. Engage intentionally in a discernment process that sheds light on the darkness of what lies in the shadows within us, as well as in those acting on the stage of history. And in that discernment, shedding light on the shadows, practice humility, acknowledge complicity, and learn to repent. 3. Acknowledge the distance between what we say we believe and value and how we have actually lived, the political, economic, and social choices we have made. And then decide how it is that we can bring our rhetoric and our actions a little closer together. 4. Look for and see the presence of God in our enemies. Serve them where they are in pain and vulnerable, and allow them to serve us. 5. Be certain. Be certain and take a searching and fearless moral inventory about this. That our goals are for a more peaceful and just conclusion. and then navigate what comes at us by honoring the dignity of every living creature. Those 5 actions, offering a continuum of choices within them, describe gospel wisdom and how we can practice it, having crossed the Rubicon and before we get to wherever it is we're going. Go light and easy on obfuscating rhetoric and heavy on action. Even if the action is just penetrating our own psyche to discern our motivations and to listen to our woundedness. And of course, to hear God's call within us. Now, I launched into this today because it's the elephant in the room, maybe the pink elephant in the room. And honestly, the readings from the lectionary do not really address the chaos and debris that we're all dealing with in this moment. Except that Psalm 139 and Mary Oliver do remind us of who we are and whose we are. Because it's so easy in the swirl of chaos and fears and anxieties and anger and rage to forget who we are and whose we are. God has searched us out and known us, the psalm says. And so we can remember that we too, Mary Oliver says, have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Whatever we discover, as we re-enter the practice of our baptismal covenant, and as we go through the steps to reincarnate it again in our lives, is that we come closer to the presence of the holy in our midst. That's one of the gifts of practicing gospel wisdom. We come closer to the presence of the holy. And when we do that, it feeds our soul, no matter what side of the Rubicon we are on. Please, take care, be well, and peace be with you.